If you've bought any movies recently, on Blu-ray for example, you more than likely run into a blowhard who insists on informing you that no one buys physical media and you should be streaming movies instead, as though he's the only guy who's discovered this amazing life hack. Of course, in reality, it's news to absolutely no one that the sales of movies on physical media are reducing. The figures for Blu-ray show a gradual decline, and that, no doubt, is set to continue. But it's certainly not a dead format just yet, and I don't understand why anyone would want to be a cheerleader for the death of a format that they never bought into in the first place anyway. I'm all for people having the choice of how to watch their movies, and for me, it would be a sad day when you can't buy your own physical copy of anything. I buy a fraction of the number of discs I did a decade ago, though. The films I tend to get now on UHD Blu-ray are just a select few new releases and some old favourites that I want to see again in the best possible quality. But with most films, I'm happy just to wait until they appear on one of the various subscription or download services that I've got access to. In recent years, whenever I've bought a standard Blu-ray or even the occasional DVD title, it's because it's been a film that's unlikely to appear on any of those services. These are usually releases from a small independent label or a film that's just not destined for a UK release. But recently with Blu-rays, this has been causing me a few issues with region restrictions. One of the best things about UHD Blu-ray that rarely gets mentioned is the fact it doesn't implement a region lock system, so you can play any disc from anywhere on any player without any problem. That's a big change from DVD, which was launched with 7 different region codes. However, most people, including myself, quickly circumvented these with a multi-region hack. So most of the DVDs I bought over the years came from either the US, Canada, Hong Kong, Japan or South Korea. When Blu-ray came out, though, it was a different story. Although they simplified the regions down into 3, A, B and C, the way this was implemented created some problems. The countries that I'd been importing my DVDs from were all now included in Blu-ray Region A, whereas the UK is in Region B. Now, most Blu-ray players were made much more difficult or even impossible to region hack than the DVD machines had been. For example, the Ultra HD Blu-ray player that's sitting under my main television in the lounge, a Panasonic DMP UB900EBK, can be easily hacked for multi-region DVD just by sending an infrared code to it. But for standard Blu-rays, 1080p Blu-rays, it's stuck on Region B, and there's currently no known way to hack it. However, until recently, this just didn't seem to be an issue to me. You see, while many discs are like this one, where they've got a region code on the back listed as A, B and C, which means it should play anywhere, some discs that you buy, like this one for example, just says region code A. Now, I'm in region code B, so you'd think this wouldn't be able to play on my machine. But you'd be wrong, it does. So this is what the problem's been. I've become complacent. I thought that if I bought a Blu-ray it would just play fine. I didn't really need to pay much attention to the letters written on the back. But over the last few months I bought a couple of titles from Hong Kong, including this one called Paradox, which is also known as SPL3. And just like the other disc, this says A on the back. However, when I put this into one of my Blu-ray players, instead of playing normally, it comes up with this message at the beginning, which is a warning telling me that I'm unable to play it on my machine. And this just repeats over and over again, and you can't skip past it. Now, I bought SPL2 a while ago as well, and that has exactly the same issue. It's just got the A on the back, and again, playing that in my Region B machine, it tells me that I'm unable to play it. Now, it's only 2 titles I've got at the moment that I've been unable to play. However, I've got a feeling this might be a sign of things to come, especially since I'm going more to the fringes of the video releases and therefore importing more from other countries. I think I need a player that can play any disc from anywhere. Now, because I'm unable to modify the main Ultra HD Blu-ray player that I've got attached up to the television in the lounge, I'm reverting back to my previous machine, which has been serving a function in the hi-fi for playing back CD, SACD, Blu-ray audio and DVD audio, but for the moment, temporarily, I've pulled it out of there because this machine can be modified with the aid of this hardware kit. Now, I've bought this online, and it's a circuit board which goes into a number of different Blu-ray players. And the idea is with this, you have to solder it to a certain number of points and update the firmware. So it comes with the wire, which is a solid core wire. We've got a double-sided sticky pad, and then we've got these instructions, which are also available online. It does look a little bit more complicated, though, than I was initially anticipating. Now, I've had all these things sitting around for a while, but my motivation for finally getting around to doing this today is that the missus is out this evening, and I thought if I get this sorted out, that means I can have a Hong Kong movie night on my own, so fingers crossed it's going to work. It's surprising how little there is in here. We've got a circuit board on the left, which is the one I need to be getting to the underneath of, then the drive and a power supply, a couple of circuits at the front. So to get to the underside of this, I have to unplug all the cables that are attached to the top of it. Now, I'm not going to undo those ribbon cables. In the past, I've taken ribbon cables out and had a little bit of difficulty getting them back in properly. So we'll see if it stretches over. What I'll do is I'll take out the screws that are holding the board to the base, and then there's another couple of screws that hold it onto the back of the case. And once I've got all those out, we'll see if we've got enough play in those cables so that I can stretch it over and do my soldering on the bottom of the board. It does come out like that quite easily. It's only a small thing. It's like a Raspberry Pi that's running this whole thing. But yeah, it will go over there, so that's fine. I'll just get a cloth to put on top of the laser unit so I don't scratch anything. Perhaps I could have got a slightly cleaner one though. I've got a bag full of these things. I was using this for cleaning some electronics before, but there we go. It sits on top of there. So now looking at the instructions, I've got to solder to 6 points. There's one at the bottom there, 5 at the top. So on the circuit board, it's these 3 dots on the left here, the top one on that column there, and then the bottom one as well, and then along the bottom I think it's that one there between the 2 silver dots. I'll have to make sure I count in from the right hand side to make sure I get the right one later on. So if I take this out of its anti-static packaging, someone will probably tell me what this is from. I'm sure it's a multi-purpose device. After all, it's got a micro SD card reader on there and a connector on the edge. Not going to use either of those 2 things, but what I'm going to do is solder those 6 points onto the appropriate points that are on the board there. So I'm going to get the usual complaints, I'm sure, about my soldering technique here, and I'll be honest, I wasn't really making too much of an effort. I just wanted to get it done, so yeah, I didn't sort of pre-tin everything. These spots are incredibly small for my eyes as well. I'm a little bit old for this kind of stuff, and my shaky hands as well, but I managed to get all the wires on there, all 6 wires attached, so it's just a matter of attaching those up to the corresponding points on the board. Now, if I was doing this according to the textbook, I'm sure I would have put some solder on each of those connectors I was going to use down the side. I was doing it the wrong way. I was putting a bit of solder on the tip of the iron and attaching them up that way, but it seemed to be working. Nothing was going wrong, and all the wires I was attaching to it seemed nice and firmly attached. Nothing was falling off, so I thought, well, just carry on. What's the worst that could happen? So I've put all those 6 connectors onto that board now, and all the wires seem to be well attached at both ends. There was no problems with it, so it's just a matter of putting it all back in the case now. I've got no idea at this point whether or not I've accidentally damaged something, whether or not this board is ever even going to do anything, but we'll just go through the process of putting it back together and we'll find out once we've got the case back in one piece. So put that circuit board to one side there with those wires. We've got enough play so I can just move it out of the way, stick it down there, and then it's just a matter of reassembling everything. Now, I hope I haven't killed it. I don't know how much this player cost me back in the day, but I know it wasn't cheap, although it's a lot cheaper than my Ultra HD one, so I'd rather, if one of them died because I was messing about, it was this one. But fingers crossed I haven't done anything in here that's caused it any problems. So we'll find out, plug it in, plug it back into the television, switch it on, and yes, it says Pioneer on the display on the front. It comes up on the screen. Just try a Blu-ray here just to see that this one's working fine, and I'm happy to say after a bit of loading it came up and it's working perfectly. But that only means it's working exactly as it was before. The next stage is to load up some custom firmware on the player. So I've downloaded that, put it on this USB stick. The address for the firmware was provided in the instructions. Go into the menus on the machine, update the firmware from the USB storage, and it seems to be taking it in fine. I'd imagine if you tried to do this without that circuit board, it would have said that it's incompatible or something. The circuit board must just override some function and then enable it to load this custom firmware on. So now it's on there. The way that this is supposed to work is that you put the machine into standby, and then you choose on the remote control 1 for region A, 2 for B, or 3 for C, and press that button and the machine comes back on as a machine that can play discs from that region. So to find out whether this has been a success, I'll use one of those Region A discs that I put in the machine before that came up with that red error message. But this time it goes straight into the copyright information at the beginning, through all the tedious menus and things, and finally you get into the film itself, and it works fine. So that's been a success. I'm always a little bit surprised when anything that I solder ends up working at the other end, and looking at my soldering skills, I'm sure you'd agree that it's a bit of a shock as well. But yeah, that worked fine. So what I'll do, I'll just put the instructions on the back of the remote control, because I'll probably use this again in like 6 months and then forget what I was supposed to be doing. So 1 for A, 2 for B, 3 for C, after putting it into standby. So there we go. That's that job done. So that means after packing all this stuff away and plugging the machine into the television, my Hong Kong movie night is on. So that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there that don't enjoy tales with a twist at the end. You know, the kind of cheap trick where it says that everything you've just seen was just a dream or something like that. You feel cheated. Well, you might feel cheated by this video, because it turns out I needn't have done any of the things I did to this Blu-ray player to get it to play these discs. I could have done it with my existing machine, which is the one that's playing it at the moment. This is the problem I was having with my Ultra HD machine. All I needed to do, according to a couple of people that told me about this on Patreon, was to know about the top menu trick. Now, I'd pressed top menu and it had just come up with a message saying this operation cannot be performed now, and it wouldn't let me skip past these using any combination of buttons I could think of. But it was as simple as stopping the disc, and then rather than pressing play, press top menu a couple of times in a row, and then the main menu appears from where you can then play the film. So yes, it turns out this entire video has been a complete waste of your time and mine. I hope you don't mind about that.
You know what I don't like about Blu-ray?
Is it the cost?
No.
The space they take up?
No.
The region coding?
Yes, but no, that's not it.
Go on then, I give up. What is it that you don't like about Blu-ray?
It's the name.
What's wrong with the name?
It's stupid.
In what way?
Well, why does anyone need to know about the colour of the laser? After all, CDs aren't called red ray discs.
Good point. And vinyls aren't called stylus discs.
No, they're called records. But anyway, that's still better than Blu-ray, because at least it's spelt properly.
Go on, you're on a roll.
Well, blue is spelt B-L-U-E. B-L-U spells blur.
So, you're saying it should be pronounced Blu-ray disc?
Exactly. And then on top of that, it's also the world's most annoying product name to type.
How come?
Well, the first character is a capital B, which means that I have to start off by pressing the shift key, which was already more work than I was planning on putting in.
Fair enough.
But then we move into lowercase to continue misspelling the word blue.
As previously mentioned.
But now we're taking a mysterious trip into the world of punctuation with that flipping dash, which is on a completely different screen on a smartphone.
Yeah, I'm starting to see your point.
Then, after the dash, we're back typing letters again. But for some reason the capitalisation has gone out of the window now, and we're back typing lowercase.
Perhaps it's supposed to be a continuation of the same word.
Well, what's the dash for then?
Perhaps the missing E?
It's rubbish. A court stenographer would find it annoying to type.
So, what would you have called it?
Something that's short and simple. All capitals. Just like VHS, CD, DVD.
How about HD DVD?
Now that has got a good ring to it.
Yep, And it already sounds familiar.
It's a lot better than flipping Blu-ray. There's no worse name for a format.
But what about 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray?
Yeah, now that would be crazy.
No, it's real. And the funny thing is that they're not even in 4K. They're just UHD.
Flipping heck!